What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. This is TWA Motorsports, and today, yes, we are going to see if we can get this thing on the road. Now, you guys know in the last video I was having some issues. Got a misfire, a random misfire. So today we're going to see if we can address that, as well as continuing to fill up our fluids. Still got to put a little bit of coolant in. It's pretty close though. And then I need to top off the transmission fluid. So the method really for doing the transmission fluid, guys, is pour 4 quarts in, start it up for about 2 or 3 seconds, shut it off, pour another 4 quarts in, shut it off, and then once the motor gets up to temperature, then check it. The reason you don't want to put like 8 quarts in immediately is a lot of times it'll push out like your overflow, which is like a vent tube on top of the transmission. Sometimes, now not always, but anyway, what I'm going to be doing today and what I've already done, let's talk about what I've already done. So in order to see if my mis changed, I swapped the front coil pack and the back coil pack on this side. And that is I was getting a misfire on 7, which is the very last one. I was getting a misfire on 4. So I swapped both those. And no change. So I still have a miss on those actual, on those same cylinders. So I swapped the plug wires, thinking, well, maybe that's the problem. No change. So what I'm really thinking it is this engine, when I had it in the other truck, kind of stumbled occasionally, and I actually think that it's an injector. And so instead of like popping the injector rail up and changing an injector out of its actual rail, I've got this other intake off the blue truck, which they're the exact same injectors. I'm just going to swap the rail. So what sucks is there is some stuff you got to take out of the way. Obviously, we got to unhook the fuel lines in the back. We got to take a couple of the wiring pieces loose in the front. But then I should be able to snake that thing out of here. And like I said, I'm just going to be putting that one in. So the other thing is I did have a little bit of a vacuum leak. I noticed it was kind of idling high. This guy right here, the purge canister, actually was leaking. So was able to push it back down into place, and I don't know why, but it was kind of up, and that was one of my issues. So I thought when I found that, I actually took the intake off like right after I quit filming, and I thought when I found that, I was like, oh, maybe I found it, but no, I still have the miss according to HP tuners. So we're going to swap the injector rail out, which should just be 4 8mm bolts, and then of course all the stuff you've got to get out of the way in order to get it, disconnecting the fuel lines, and then we'll also have to put a little bit of assembly lube. I generally use like just Vaseline on the injectors, like on the little O-rings, just so they slide in nice and easy. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll see if we can start it up. And then obviously the other issue we had is the alternator. It's showing that it's charging, not charging, so may do something there. But honestly, the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of the misfire, and because none of the rest of it's really relevant. If I can't get rid of the misfire, we'll worry about the filling the transmission and the alternator after we get that done. So I'm going to whip this out really quick, and well, as quick as I possibly can. And then we'll go on to starting it and see if we got rid of our misfire. So looking at this, guys, it really doesn't look like there's any issue. So, maybe or maybe not, this is the problem. But if it switches cylinders, we'll definitely know that that was the issue. Like, I could have just popped one of these out and just taken one injector out. But to me, I've got 3 of these laying around. I might as well use them, and they're the same injector. So I'm going to put this new one in, and we'll get it all put back together. I didn't really have to take a ton of stuff apart, but I did have to take a few things. It kind of sucks because you definitely want to start it and hear it run right. So let's try this and see if that fixes it. So round 2 here, got everything buttoned back up, got the battery hooked back up, got HP tuners hooked up. Now it will take a couple times to start probably because we did drain out the fuel lines, and there's air in them. So don't be alarmed if it cranks a couple times before it actually fires, but we are ready to try it. And one of the things that I like to check when I put injectors in, maybe I'm a little too cynical, but I like to make sure that there's no leaks around the base. So I didn't make any changes of the top of the injector, but the bottom where it actually goes into the intake, I like to shine my light in there and make sure there's no fuel leaks. So let's fire it up. I'm going to log it at the same time with my HP tuners, and we'll see what's going on. still there, which I guess in a way is, well, it's not good because I was hoping that it wouldn't be, but so that means it's something else. So the next couple things that it could be is for some reason there's a leak in the intake, would be my guess. And I don't know why, because I put new intake gaskets on it, but that's the only other possible explanation that I can think of. 7 and 4, still the exact same ones. Like I said, I swapped the coils, swapped the plug wires. At this point, I don't know what else it could be. It's got a different set of heads on it, so I don't think it's the set. I don't think it's the valves. I don't think we have an issue there. But and it's not really bad, and it seems to clean up a little bit when I give it gas, which leads me also to think that it could be a vacuum leak of some sort. But I don't know. This truck that I got this out of was involved in a crash. I mean, what do you think the chances that the intake were cracked? I don't know. It may or may not have been. I didn't see any visible cracks because I did clean this thing up really well. So what I may end up doing is I may just take this intake off and just make sure that we got a good seating surface to the actual heads, because that's the only other thing I could possibly think of causing my issue. I'm gonna send this file to my tuner, I did log it, and see if he has any ideas. You know, sometimes you put a really big cam in them and they'll have some miss to them because of the cam size, but this cam isn't that big, and as you guys can hear, it's not really lopey. So I think we're just gonna I'm gonna wait to hear from him, and if he thinks that that's what it is, I'm probably gonna take the intake off either way. One of the things I am going to do before I hear back from my tuner is I'm gonna test to see if my alternator is bad. You know, I just replaced that, it's a brand new one, but there's a chance it could not be bad out of the box. I've seen that happen before. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this on my battery, and I've just got it set on DC. And right now we are at, holy cow, we're at 12.28 volts. So what I'm gonna ultimately try to see is when I start it, if it goes up. And if it goes way above, I feel like the alternator's making, it sounds like it's a little whiny to me. And generally that means the bearing's no good. But it is brand new, so we'll just try it. I'm gonna start it up and we'll see what happens. Yeah, about 14.3. So that seems about right. Sure is noisy though. Yeah, we're getting a good reading there. So, I just don't like how loud it is. Can you guys hear that? Sounds to me like something's up there. So the alternator baffles me. I think what I'll do is I'll probably just end up taking it off, putting a stock one on, and seeing if that addresses my issue. But still trying to burn time until, like I said, my tuner gets back with me. I'm really starting to think that with the fact that I put all new gaskets in, I just don't see, and the intake's set on perfectly, I just don't see there being a leak there unless there's a crack in the intake. So I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna put some trans fluid in this thing, check it, make sure that it's where it needs to be. And that's something that you may have to check multiple times, but I wanna make sure that before I actually put it in gear and try to pull this thing out, that we're full on transmission fluid. So now that it's ran, it's up to operating temperature, I'm gonna pull that out and check it and fill it until it is in its proper section. I've got, geez, about 11 quarts in it at this point. And it's showing full, which is good. So what I think I'll do is, that miss isn't bad enough where I can't drive it. And it seems to smooth out at higher RPM. So what I think I'll do is I think we may just zip tie this line up for the AC for now, just to make sure it doesn't get, you know, into anything or lay up against something hot. and I think we're going to pull it off here and drive it down the road. Give it its first drive as a running V8 truck. Now, while it's not running great, it's running, and like I said, and maybe it's just got some plugged up crap in the intake. I don't know, but we're going to try it. I want to take it out. It's making me crazy. The alternator, like I said, is charging. It could be a dash issue. Even though I am going to swap the alternator out, I think, to a stock one to see if that fixes our issue. For the meantime, let's move some stuff out of the way and get this thing off the lift. So at this point, you can see I've got it back in the air. Well, the reason I have it back in the air, guys, is after doing all the stuff that we've done. So we swap out the injectors, swap the coil packs to make sure it wasn't an issue there, swap the plug wires. I actually pulled the plugs out and checked those. All the fluids seem to be topped off. So at this point, after getting hold of my tuner, and I do not tune my own stuff, I do enough to get me by. I'm not comfortable enough to do my own tuning. So my tuner said a lot of times you have to desensitize those misfires when you put a cam in. So because it may not actually be missing as bad as what it's saying or what I'm seeing, we're going to go ahead and get him some information as far as a log on this. But he also wants, because I'm having him tune this thing, I'm going to put a wideband in it. Unfortunately, the Y pipe that I have does not come with a provision for a wideband. Most of the time, on the back ones, or for the back O2 sensors, there's a spot, but because this is catless, it doesn't have one. So we're going to have to mark a spot where I want a wideband, and then I'm going to have a buddy of mine weld one in. I don't have a welder here, nor do I have the ability to get one here. So we're just going to take it out. Unfortunately, we're going to probably have to take out the transmission crossmember. I'm trying to think of what I'm talking about. The transmission crossmember is going to have to come out in order to get that Y pipe out, which sucks. I should have thought about that when I was putting it together. But anyway, I will list his information down below, guys. Matt at gptuning is the one who furnished the cam. He also furnished the cam for my last ZR1 and furnished all the tuning for the white SS that my wife had. So I'm going to use him from now on. I've used other tuners in the past, and to be honest with you, he is a great guy. I can send him a file, and we'll go through that process as we do that. But let's get this Y pipe out of the way. I'm going to get it marked, and we'll get the O2 sensor, or the O2 bung, or wideband bung, whatever you want to call it, welded in place, and then we'll put it back in. At this point, you can see I've got the Y pipe out, and I've got the transmission just supported on a couple blocks of wood. I've ordered like a screw jack, but they're not here yet. They're supposed to be here this week. But you can see the marking that I put right here. That is where I'm going to have my buddy put the O2 bung in. So let's get that off to him, and then we'll come back and put it in. So after a couple of, probably a week or so of waiting, and it didn't take this long to get this finished, I've had other things going on. Obviously, I bought the white truck over there that you guys saw that video on. I've been fixing on the Suburban a little bit, but same day I took this off, I took it to my buddy, and we actually went to a toy drive at his place. Guys have to check that video out, I'll link it up above, but he was able to weld this in, and I told him, this is kind of a cheaper exhaust setup. I said, don't look at my cheap exhaust, it's just probably temporary. If I ever do a turbo down the road, I didn't want to spend a ton of money on headers. But at this point, I'm ready to put that back in place. You guys also saw in that same video where I showed you the truck, I've got my new jack stand, my screw jack stand under there, holding the transmission up. But I'm going to go ahead and slide this stuff back into place now that I've got that in. And for now, I may end up putting a cap in it. But I've been talking to my tuner, and he was giving me a couple things. First of all, he said, you might do a case relearn on this thing and see if the misfires go away. Now this thing, I don't know if I told you guys this in the beginning when this thing was misfiring. It's only showing on the computer. It doesn't actually feel like it's misfiring. So at first I had a pretty good vacuum leak. Once that was fixed, it really doesn't misfire. So I think it's false misfire that I'm seeing, and so maybe a case relearn within HP tuners will fix that, and I'll show you guys that process once we get this thing back together. So once we do that, I think I'm going to try to take it out on the road, and got the transmission full. But anyway, let's get this back in place, get this thing set back down on the ground. I won't show you guys this because it's literally going back together the same way it did the first time. But I might show you, this is going to be kind of a temporary O2 or wideband setup. So I'm not planning on leaving a wideband in this at all times, so I do have a cap for that. And So I'll be just using the wideband during tuning, and I'm probably gonna I actually put it on this car, and it's kind of snaked in there right now. I'm gonna have to take it out of that car and put it in this car, which the setup that I was going with, it isn't gonna work on this anyway. So let's go ahead, get this back in place, and I may go ahead and route some of the wires inside. I'll kind of show you guys what's involved in that wideband setup. I'm just gonna run it through the door. I know that's kind of hokey, but like I said, it's just gonna be, this isn't gonna be a truck that needs to be on a wideband all the time to see what it's doing. So we'll get that in there, and then I'll show you guys, I will show you guys before I set it down, because I will have to put the wideband in there, how that works, and then we'll go from there. Now that we got everything back in, all tightened up, hooked to the exhaust, all we need to do down here is just screw the, I can't even think of what I'm thinking now, the O2 sensor, the wideband into place. Just a 7/8, literally guys, this thing is essentially an O2 sensor, just a way better one. So we're gonna put this in place, and I'm just gonna, like I said, loop this over in the door, because I'm not going to be leaving this in here. So you're just getting a 7/8 wrench, and then, like I said, I'll plug it once the thing's tuned, but for now, we're just gonna kind of zip tie it up. I'll probably go over the fender just so I don't have any chance of dragging the ground or hitting any exhaust. But that's all there is to it on the outside. And then I'll show you, I'll kind of make, I might even try to find a plug-in for a cigarette lighter adapter to hook this up temporarily. So as you can hear, the thing is idling, and it does seem like it has a little bit of a stumble. It might just be the cam. But anyway, before I hook the wideband up through the door, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull it out. I'm just dying to get this thing on the road and just make sure that it goes through all the gears just fine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull it off the lift. I'm gonna do that case relearn. In order to do a case relearn, you do have to get it up to operating temperature. That's why I've got it running here. But I've got the Corvette moved and everything else moved out of the way. So we're gonna pull it off. For the first time, under its own power, it is going to move. See, at this point I've got the Corvettes on the lift. I moved this over, and we're ready to do a case learn. So what you need to do is you need to have your HP tuners cable hooked up, and they've changed a little bit since the last time I've done one of these. I don't really like it because they used to have a begin. There we go. So you need to set your brake, your park brake, all the way down, and then you need to put your foot on the brake, and we need to turn it to on. And you need to make sure it's warm. I let it warm up, you guys know. And so we're gonna connect here. And the first thing we need to do, I hit record instead of connect, but either way it connects. So let's go read the DTCs, because if there's any of those in there, it won't do the relearn. And of course, you guys know I have the 1638, the generator issue. I probably need to do something with that. So we're going to clear it out. At that point, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to open this up and be ready for it. So you go to the little green, looks like an on button. You go to special features or special functions, and you have crank relearn. So once you click on it, it's going to say gradually rev up the motor until, or gradually rev to fuel cutoff and release. You must then cycle the ignition for the function to complete. So we're going to start it up, we're going to rev it up to fuel cut within 4 seconds, and then we're going to shut it, we're going to let it, the idle come back down, and we're going to shut the key off for at least 15 seconds. Keeping my foot on the brake. Remember, we got our e-brake on. And we're going to hit OK, and here we go. Let the idle come all the way back down, and then we shut it off. and that should store that. And what we're gonna do, because I am so antsy, is I'm gonna close out of that. Generally, it used to, guys, it said crank relearn successful, and it doesn't say that, which lends me to believe either they've made changes here or I have the newest beta software, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. Hopefully that helps some of our issues with the misfires. If not, I'm going to send this tune directly to my tuner, and we'll worry about hooking up. And really, there's not a whole lot to it. I ran that wire underneath the truck. I'm just going to run it through the door jamb and probably find 12 volts here underneath, so not a whole lot there. I'm using the same wideband that I used on my old ZR1, and my tuner seemed to really like that. It's just a PLX. It's pretty cheap, and I'll list it in the description down below, but I'm not sure. We're just going to take it out for a ride here and see what happens. So now we're going. The other thing I didn't tell you guys that I did is I checked all, like after I drove it off the lift, I checked my transmission fluid again, and I also checked the oil, checked the power steering fluid. Just want to make sure that everything's topped off. Also check the coolant. Everything looks good. So we're going to just take it up and down the road real quick. And like I said, it isn't misfiring, it's just giving me that misfire code, which I think my tuner's right. I think it just needs to be adjusted. It's literally running perfect. But this is exciting, guys. This is a maiden voyage down the street here. Go see if it'll go through all the gears. We have all our gears. Golly, it's running good. All right, I'm not gonna go very far because I don't have my fan settings adjusted either, so I'm not gonna get it hot and risk screwing something up, but I just wanted to take it down the road. Woo! It's exciting stuff, guys, even though I have an SES light flashing at me. Still exciting. So we're back from the first drive, and that, you don't even know how exciting that is for the first time. And it's kind of nerve-wracking, but it's also exciting. I knew that, you know, it was gonna be fine, but I did, like I said, I checked all the fluids before we left. I checked them again just now when I got back, and we still have some kinks to work out. So obviously the alternator issue, the airbag light was something that I believe was actually on when I did the seats. So I'm gonna have to reset that. But the airbags are actually working. But anyway, that has nothing to do with the engine swap. So like I said, from doing some research, it looks like the alternator is either gonna have to be swapped or I'm gonna have to run another wire. But for now, I think we're going to be finished in this video because I'm going to send that information to my tuner because I was logging that drive that we just took, send him my base file, let him make any changes that he might be able to make, and he might be able to adjust the alternator. Sometimes they say you can. I went in there, I didn't see anything. There's a term L and a term M, I think, and you can, I don't want to change something that's going to be detrimental to the way it charges or runs. So I'm not going to mess with that. I'm going to let people that are professionals. Like I said, guys, I am just a novice when it comes to tuning. I don't really tune my own stuff, like deleting O2s and stuff like that I can do, but when it comes to bigger stuff, I would just rather leave it to a professional. That's something that I would like to learn down the road. I've actually bought a couple DVDs and watched them, but they are so dry. They're so boring to watch. And anyway, like I said, I think we're finished for this video. I will take you guys back out and talk about the process. I didn't hook up the wideband like I said I was going to. I'll get that hooked up because he's going to want to see that for when we actually start tuning. Now, for just the base file on that first run, for him to make some little changes and then load them, then we'll go out and log. And I'll take you guys along with me when I do that because I think it's going to be a fun little truck to drive, even though it's not got a ton of stuff done to it, other than the intake, the electric fans, and that small cam and the headers, I guess. But it's not gonna be like a rocket ship. It's not gonna be like driving the ZR1 by any means, but it will be a fun truck to drive, and I think it'll just blow the tires off, which will be a blast. And that's really what it's all about anyway. But if you guys did enjoy this, let me know in the comments. Also, hit that thumbs up button. If you guys are not subscribed, you got to get subscribed because we have a ton of other stuff coming. Once we finish up completely on this, and you might see some Trans Am stuff thrown in here soon, but once we finish up on the truck, the Trans Am is the goal next. so we can get going on it. I haven't driven that thing in almost 2 years now, and it's making me sick. Look at all the dust on it. It looks terrible. I know you guys want to see it. I want to see it back on the road, and so that is where we are going. Now, I might sprinkle some other stuff in here. I really need to figure out why the battery keeps going dead on this Corvette, so that might be a video, and I've got a couple tweaks of things I want to fix on that truck. So I got a steering box and some other things. So anyway, guys, a lot of stuff coming. So if you're not subscribed, you got to get subscribed. Make sure you ring that bell icon that notifies you every time we drop a new video, and stay tuned to see what we